Hi, I'm Daz. Something different on the bench today. This isn't his master's voice 1127 clock radio. I've not seen many of these around. Do you know what? I've not really seen many clock radios in this country until you got to the 70s. So this is quite quite a rare thing. I've had it hanging around for years, and I'm not exactly a clock mender, so I'm a little bit nervous about this one. But there's your radio dial on the side. I just get it in the light so you can see it. And here's the back. Just keep it in frame. There we go. It's a clock. There's a power socket as well, which is 5 amp. Now I wonder if that's for connecting perhaps a kettle up or something extra. Interestingly, there is a 3-core cable attached to it. Well, what's left of it. As you can see, there's not a lot left of it. So this has just been hanging around, and I think, oh well, I think it's probably time I did something with it. So let's have a look and see what's inside. But there's 4 screws underneath. Trying not to drop this. And some screws on the cardboard bit at the back. Now this hand thing is going to have to come off. Feels like it unscrews, so yep, that should be okay. First look with the cover off is interesting. We've got a ferret rod, an energised speaker, really, and also this one is an auto transformer device. So it's a series strung, but there's an auto transformer, so we haven't got a massive drop-in resistor. You can see the clock mechanism back here. The question is going to be, how many of these wound components are going to be functional? That's a very, very good question. A couple of screws here to release the tuning dial, I noticed, just here, so but make sure they get undone first. Well, here's the chassis out. There's a 4-pin socket on the chassis and an earth connection, so I've unplugged those. So now we can see the voltage change. There's the auto transformer. There's the output transformer here. Ferret rod. There's a socket with only 2 connections, but I suspect the earth is gained from this mounting hole on the side. There's the first sign of a waxy capacitor. Notice there's 2 fuses as well. So let's flip the chassis over. Very interesting chassis construction. We've got like a Plaxon board here with the valve holders on, and notice that's insulated from the chassis, and in fact there is an earth connection to the chassis, so this is fascinating. So you've got a chassis that is transformerless apart from the auto transformer, but it's somehow insulated. You can see there's obviously plastic on the dual capacitor located here. So yeah, this is a very, very interesting construction. I've not seen anything like this before. Just looking on the back, there obviously are trimmers, I guess. See the audio output transformer. Right. So there's 2 windings. There's a spare one there. I wonder what that is. A voltage change switch, rather burnt up looking resistor. So yeah, this is something different. So it's obviously designed to be insulated from the chassis, so we'll take a closer look. Just having a close-up of the clock mechanism. It says it's a Smith's mechanism. I can't see where it says that, but that looks very interesting. Hopefully the motor windings are not open. And then there's the cleaning it up and degunking it and seeing if I can get it to run. Oh yes, I can see Smiths on it now. This is written down here. See if I can read anything. It's a little bit corroded. It's made in England. Well, that's something different. So that's the clock part anyway. Spot the odd man out here. I'm obviously not the first person to take this apart. It's just this single capacitor has been replaced, but everything else in this is original. So, you know, it's a bit odd that that one capacitor's been changed. I've no idea why. Well, I've been measuring some of the wound components, and they actually do seem in good order. I like the fact the IF transformers seem to unplug as well. That's something different I've not experienced. This thing is just all new to me. Field coil's good. The auto transformer's good. Output transformer's good. So I'm getting good measurements on those. The clock's interesting. That is 12k, and there's a 3.4k on the buzzer. There's a buzzer there as well, so that's interesting. The energized coil is measuring 594, and the output transformer 376. Just to give you some figures there. So yeah, I'm just finding this completely fascinating. It's just completely different to anything I've looked at before, most certainly. Well, I feel a bit dizzy now. Just of note, the cathode resistor and the anode resistor for the audio preamp both needed changing. They were quite far out. Everything else was fairly easy. This capacitor is the one to the chassis, and it could do with being a Y-type capacitor ideally. So that will need changing at a later date. This one is an X2, so that's good. I had one of those in stock, but I just need to get a Y capacitor. I'm just figuring out how to bypass the clock, and I'm now going to power it up for the first time and see what happens. I've identified which one ought to be neutral. So I'll get it connected up and see if it goes boom. Okay, so it's on the isolation transformer and the dim bulb, so it shouldn't cause any problems if something does go wrong. And yeah, that sounds pretty good. So that's a good start. Just an interesting note about this set. This set has long wave, but it's a preset long wave. Those two big variable capacitors we saw on the front of the chassis, those are used to tune in your light program, or now I suppose it would be the home service. So hopefully.
Okay then, sorry about the interruption. Got to call one of my...
Yep, that seems like that is okay. So that's good. HT looks a little bit on the high side because it states 216, but it could just be that the audio output valve is a bit weak or what have you, so it might be something to do with that. But it's nice that the radio section is working because all the wound components did test out okay. Might have a go at the IF, but they look like they're pretty stuck, so a little bit of heat in them perhaps. It's 470 according to the information I've got. I managed to find some information in the radio and television manuals, the red ones, so that will help. So yeah, so the next thing I've got to look at is the clock, and I know nothing really much about clocks, I'll be honest with you, so that could be a bit of a disaster, but you know, we'll see. These are the two trimmers for long wave, so one is local oscillator and the other one is to peak your ferrite rod, and then you've got the same thing for medium wave, which is built onto the tuning capacitor. So makes you wonder whether long wave was an add-on here, but in this country it's only usually been the one station you want to receive, so I guess they decided to do it this way, unless this chassis was designed as an AM chassis, perhaps for the American market, and so in order to cope with the UK market they added the long wave facility. So that's interesting, but it's the first time I've had a radio with a preset long wave, so that's quite fascinating. I've just quickly drawn out the main section here, so the mains come straight into the clock. The auxiliary socket is here just before the two fuses, so that's obviously not subject to the fuse. There's the modulation hum capacitor. Now this has got, as I said earlier, it's got an auto transformer in because the string only comes to 84 volts. That and the valves in here, the 35W4, it really gives me the idea this hasn't some sort of American connection here for that valve. And this string, 84 volts, that's not too bad if you want to drop for 110 volts, but 240. The heat in this case would be horrific, wouldn't it? So that is probably why they fitted this auto transformer. Auto transformer is just a transformer with a single winding. The secondary is taken from this single winding as well as the primary input. Obviously it means it's not isolated, so there is, even though you see a transformer, there is no isolation in this set. Also the energized field coil still puzzles me, but maybe they wanted to try and get better smoothing, so you've got the electromagnet on the speaker being used as a smoothing choke as well as a magnet. The output transformer has got a little humbucking coil in it as well, in series with the voice coil as well. So yeah, it's just an interesting circuit, but definitely think it's got an American origin. Well, here's the bit I don't understand. Here's the clock. Just looking here, there's some contacts. There's a pair of them there for the radio. There's another contact round here, and that appears to be for the alarm. And if you pull it out and turn the alarm round, they do close sometimes. Keep turning, there we go. So presumably this buzzer here is what makes the buzzing noise. There's the motor. I'm not sure what that spring's for. I wonder if it's something to make it go the right way, because these motors have a tendency to go both ways. It looks very, very grubby. Not quite sure how to approach this. I do have clock oil, something I did buy. So I guess it's just a case of cleaning it the best I can and just hoping it functions. It doesn't just make horrible rattling noises. I suppose the principle is really the same as a tape recorder. There's a constant speed motor. This is synchronised to the mains. There's reduction gears, and then instead of a capstan, there's a pair of hands. So that's the clock mechanism. Well, here's the electric motor. It spins. That's something. There's the coil of wire. I'm guessing these bits are part of the magnetic field. Concentrate the magnetic field, I'm not sure, but that doesn't come out. So, but yeah, it's it's covered in, well, dried up grease. So I'll just have to see what I can do for it. But well, I'm not sure, but I guess this bit here is something to do with stopping the motor from reversing, because I've noticed this little mechanism, and there on the motor here there's a little thing that sticks out. I wonder if that's to do with that. Yeah, I like the way that auto reverse mechanism works. That's quite cool. Doink. Very cool. That's a relief. It's going round. If you loosen the mounting bolts, the energised speaker, you can move the hole right where this cable bracket is, because it's a bit awkward to get to. Not quite sure what I'm going to use cable wise, because it's a flat cable, but I'll see what I can come up with. I'm just still working on the clock. I've cleaned the dial and the little glass, it's not glass, it's plastic on the clock, so I'm just going to do this mains cable and I'm going to reassemble it, and we'll see if it still works. Still got alignment to do as well. When soldering to a big connection like this, it goes without saying you need plenty of flux and a very large soldering iron and bit. And this one is a nice powerful 50-watt iron, so I was able to solder that, and you need to make sure it's a good mechanical joint. But yeah, it's certainly now coming on. It turns out this bracket is bendable, so it's bent into the shape of the new cable, so that's all connected now. I've identified this connection as the 0 volts for the HT. I'm going to have to do an insulation test, because obviously if this is an earth chassis and you've got wound components etc. sticking on it, I'm going to have to do a bit of an insulation check and just hope the insulation's good. If not, I'll have to rethink how we're going to approach it, but hopefully the insulation test comes out good. I'm now going to do the IF alignment. This one's 470 kilohertz. Inject the 470 into the grid of the mixer valve. The trimmers were stuck, very frozen. A bit of contact cleaner and a bit of heat from my desoldering station seems to have shifted that, so I'll just go through using the millivolt meter on the speaker and just trim it up, see if there's any difference. And I'll probably disturbed it anyway, trying to see the cause, but then I'll do the front end alignment and just check it's set up and aligned for 198 on long wave. One issue I've not experienced before is IF instability. It's definitely going unstable as I peak there, so I'll have to think my way around that one. It could well be with all these wires hanging off from the grid, it's adding to the pickup, but it could generally be something that does happen when they're all peaked.
even with a light coupling in, I'm still getting a feedback, so I'm going to just have a look at the wiring and see if any wires are near the IF output and coupling back to the input IF. That's the logical thing it could be, it's just some coupling. In my case, the problem is this grid wire here that goes to the first mixer. I've moved it right back over here. Obviously when I recapped I must have pulled them this way, so it's always a good idea to have photographs of how the wiring was laid out, so I got caught out there. I think it's one of the first times it's happened to me, but it appears stable now. This one's a little bit different. You set the local oscillator with the tuning gang completely open, which is 1602 kilohertz, and then you peak the aerial trimmer at 1427 kilohertz. So this one's a little bit different, but I don't seem to have an instability problem now, so hopefully that's solved. Now it's a case of putting everything back together and see if it all works. Here's the lineup of valves, and as I said, they're definitely not the ones you usually find in British receivers of this age. I think this is about 1958 if I've got my facts right. It's volume 4, 57 to 58 in the radio and TV manuals. So you go to box it up and find out you've got a large 50 Hertz hum. This is the anode of the output valve, so I'm not quite sure what that's about. Okay, so this is the grid of the output valve, and my goodness, there's a lot of 50 Hertz on there. This is the cathode of the output valve, and here is the anode. So there's a lot of 50 Hertz. Now, if I go, that's the grid. If I go to the other side of the coupling capacitor, it's much reduced. So it depends, you know, it must be that. It must be the valve itself with a cathode short. Well, where were we? Well, I thought there might be a problem with the valve, the audio output valve, so I managed to get an order in for a replacement valve, and it's arrived safely. We have a lockdown situation here at the moment. It's March 2020, so fortunately this has arrived in time. It's new old stock, so hopefully this will solve our hum problem. I'm pretty certain that the other valve has got a cathode to filament short, hence the humming we had, so we'll get that in and see if that fixes the problem. Well, looking at the cathode resistor, there's certainly a lot less hum than there was there before. I can't remember what scale I was in last time in the previous clip, but that's 2 volts per division. And just looking at the anode, yeah, there's certainly a lot less hum there, and the speaker doesn't seem to be vibrating, so I think there was definitely a short in that valve. Looking at this valve, it does look like it's a bit tired, and let's be honest, this is a tiny packaged valve really. And the other issue was because it's a 19 volt 150 milliamp filament valve, very uncommon. With the auto transformer it would always be difficult to substitute, but fortunately I found a replacement, although it cost more than I paid for the radio itself, but that's what you often find now, I'm afraid to say. But anyway, no large hums now, so hopefully I can finally pop this into its case. Okay, let's give it an installation test. 100 megs. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so everything looks in order. Well, it's all back together. My goodness, this buzzer is loud. Watch your ears. Ooh. That would definitely wake you up, wouldn't it? Wakey wakey Daz. Thanks for watching this one. I'm glad I didn't put it on buzzer, because I think it would have frightened me too much, but there we go. So there we go, that's the HMV 1127 radio alarm clock. It's quite interesting really, because I don't remember seeing a radio alarm clock in my household until the 70s, and that was a flip clock with a solid state radio in it, of course. But yeah, I didn't really realise that these were available in the 50s. I guess you have to be quite well off to afford one. Anyway, thanks for watching, and the workshop looks a right mess. Anyway, I'll see you soon. Take care.